Hi all, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome to a video that I assume absolutely no credit for. I will give credit where credit is due. Not entirely sure if anyone else has done this or if it was started. I will leave whatever down below. But the person I saw who inspired me to do this was Abby Williams, who is probably one of my favorite anti-consumer sassy Reddit YouTubers ever. Her anti-hauls, even when I don't agree with her, I still agree with her. And she did a video that was talking about the most disappointing releases of 2020, which I feel could be less a video and more a series. Because let's be real, there was a lot of grasping, there was a lot of reaching, there was a lot of disappointment within the beauty community in 2020. There was a moment of respite in like February, March, April, May, and then companies just decided to Jesus take the wheel, balls to the wall. Let's release absolutely everything in a desperate attempt to make up for those months that we lost. I would also like to preface this with saying some things I'm going to be talking about I have talked about before, as well as things that I haven't actually tried, mostly because they were a disappointing release that I wasn't gonna spend my money on. But I like to preface things with saying that and making sure y'all know that, so you can take my sassy whatever opinions with a grain of salt. Just because I haven't used something, just because I haven't bought something, doesn't mean I'm not allowed to have an opinion on it. And that being said, if I talk about something that you absolutely love, that is fan-tucking-fastic. You keep doing you, boo-boo. Makeup is disgustingly, hideously subjective, and so we all have our different opinions, desires, what we like. This is just me doing my thing, getting my kicks out there, talking about all the things that I feel inside about the absolute nonsense that is the makeup consumering environment. Makeup consumering, that is a new word. So, without further ado, let's just get into this. I have quite a few things on my list, so let's just see how many we can check off and get through in this video. Okay, we're gonna start off with one that I think I spoke about fairly recently, amidst anti-hauls and other anti-consumeristic, thoughtful, provoking, whatever rhetoric I've been spewing in the last couple of months. Things do tend to blur together. Y'all know I pre-film, so there is that situation going on as well. So like, you know, it gets a little bit muddy. But one thing that popped out into my mind as disgustingly, terribly disappointing for a couple different reasons. But the Morphe x Lisa Frank collaboration collection, which, as I predicted, sold out like nobody's business. Hotcakes have not sold faster than this collaboration sold out. There were a couple eyeshadow palettes, there were some brushes, there were some sponges. I mean, my 1990s love child heart was just like, Lisa Frank. I remember buying the folders. I remember buying the stickers and the things. And I remember I used to have this little backpack filled with like, you know, I was like, what? 13, you know, 13-year-old Lisa Frank swag. It's like, I got the pencil case. I got the little thingy I got the erasers. I was living my Lisa Frank best life. And so you hear about Lisa Frank collaboration with makeup and you're like, yeah. And then I found out it was with Morphe, and I literally was sitting here in the bedroom with my cousin being like, I want to cry. This is like of all of the whatevers they could collaborate with, it would be Morphe. But that's not the worst. That is not the most of the disappointment. Because if you look at the collection kind of from an outside perspective and you're just kind of looking at it, you're like, okay, all right. You know, it's executed pretty well. But as I mentioned in my anti-haul talking about this, if you are a makeup lover and a Lisa Frank lover and are of a certain age, you probably recall the Lisa Frank X Glamour Dolls makeup collaboration that kind of never really happened. They took people's money and they ran with it, and then they never gave them their stuff. And then we saw, was it BoxyCharm? Somewhere they saw the product being given out there. The Lisa Frank makeup brush that was supposed to be exclusive for this whole thing. Hot Topic was selling that shiz. There was a lot of ugly what that it came into, people putting their money and their faith into this project and then basically having it just spit back at them. So you've got that disappointment. You've got the disappointment that it's like, oh, we've done this once. That didn't work out, but I guess Morphe is paying enough of a premium for Lisa to come out of hiding and put her name on this and get a really nice check. For those of us who have been burned, it was kind of adding a little bit of lemon, a little bit of salt to the wound. And then you have the fact, I mentioned in my anti-haul that one of the eyeshadow palettes, I'm not entirely sure about all of them, but one of them looked an awful freaking lot like the 35B, which was supposedly retired after James Charles came out with his James Charles Artistry palette. His palette was supposed to basically be the new and improved version of the 35B, but apparently the palette with the Lisa Frank, whatever it was, the 35B. So what I feel like happened here is Morphe and their group got together and said, hey, we got a bunch of these 35Bs just sitting around. Ain't nobody buying them. We can't sell them. What are we going to do? And someone said, hey, that Lisa Frank chick, she does a lot of stuff with vivid, crazy color. So they called a bishop and they were like, hey, what's what? She was like, yeah, use my shiz, use my drawing, do my whatever. Take all those 90 millennial babies' monies. And that's exactly what happened. They put a cute little binder-esque packaging on a bunch of leftover 35B palettes and sold it to us. Maybe I'm just the type of person to get all sorts of hot and bothered over nothing. Maybe I'm too sensitive. But that just sort of rubbed me the wrong way. Like I would have liked to have seen a little bit more ingenuity, a little bit less just repackaged 35B packaging, maybe a little bit more acceptance, a little bit more acknowledgement to makeup lovers past who had attempted to have a Lisa Frank and makeup collaboration happen, for them to have their money taken away and receive no product, to then have this collaboration just show up. It was just a bit distasteful, kind of left me feeling a little bit miffed. So I found it absolutely underwhelming for a couple different reasons. For, what it was, if you were to strip away all the fancy Lisa Frank packaging, for what it was in the sense of, in the face of those who had tried before. I understand that a lot of y'all have said I have become a little bit nasty, a little bit nitpicky, a little bit brand shaming. I like to consider it a little bit of consumeristic enlightenment, because if any of y'all were to go back in my videos, by all means, go have a trip down memory lane. I was the type of person who would have jumped on this shiz I would have had every single piece of it, even the sponges. I was like, I need all of it. I have learned in my years on YouTube to discern what is something that I'm actually going to get use out of, what is something that is an actual quality product versus what to me allegedly seems to be a licensed product cash grab, which is honestly what I felt this was. They slapped some pretty beautiful, amazing Lisa Frank art onto some leftover 35Bs and they made bang. So when I see a company do something that is basically a cash grab, I like to talk about it. If you bought it, you love it, that's great. Spend your money how you want to spend it. I am not here to police you. I'm here to talk about this makeup as it is subjective to my experience, my desires, and my opinions. And I felt like this was just a licensing cash grab to get rid of some leftover units. All right. Let's talk about something I've definitely talked about repeatedly. So, I mean, if you're here, you know. If you're here, you know now. Jeffree Star Cosmetics. 2020 was an interesting year for your boy. And 2020 was the year that he promised to give us purple decadence. I don't know if y'all know, but you know now, I am down for some purple decadence. I was even down with this travesty, hexagonal, weird, stupid shaped crushed velvet packaging situation. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm a vampire. Vampires love velvet. Bloodlust. I'm down. I can see it. Would it have been my first choice? No, but I was letting myself roll with it. And I must admit, even I, someone who had for a very long time praised his shiz, when he opened that in that review video, it was kind of like a, there's gonna be more, right? What he's showing us right now, that's just like, that's the prototype. We don't have the real thing yet, right? This isn't going to market. We're not, it's done. It's done. Because for a palette being called Bloodlust, like I said, I don't feel like going into the definition of lust. I feel like my demographic is old enough to know what that shiz is. I expected something a bit more intense, a bit more passionate. You know, I wanted some 50 Shades of Grey in a purple color story all up in this shiz. And what I got was sort of a faint pastel-y purple with a red and a kind of a dark aqua-y greeny bluey shade. The Bloodlust collection was definitely something that missed the mark, especially eyeshadow wise, because we have seen him do a beautiful range. We had the red, we had the blue blood. It's like, all right, we're going on purples. Okay. I mean, I don't think we had much of this kind of purple going on. Maybe one shade, and then he had the audacity to give us a black with a little bit of a purpley, shimmery, shiny something stuff. I look at that palette, it makes me mad. And I'm like, you could have been a contender. But that palette did not make it past the finals. It didn't make it past the first cut. It was just like, Bloodlust, but I'm rated PG. I mean, it had a couple little fancy embossing things on it. It had a really funky, wonky packaging. I mean, it was just, when the mirrors and the highlighter and everything else about that launch was better than the eyeshadow palette, that says something. And this was one of the ones that did not sell out nearly as much as eyeshadow palettes past. I think it was like 2 days after, and I was like on Snapchat, not throwing shade, but I'm just saying this shit's still in stock. Compared to what it just could have been and what he could have done and what he had the full capability to come up with, it was just, I have more depth and more lust in my Colourpop single eyeshadows and my Colourpop Ooh La La and my Colourpop Lilac You A Lot. Like, you could buy those purple Colourpop palettes and you could just have, I'm going to be doing a series on my channel where I do a better than certain eyeshadow palettes, and we're going to have a better than Jeffree Star Bloodlust, a better than Viseart Absinthe. There's just going to be, I've got all these different ideas because it is, it's just sad. It was sad. It's purple. It's purple. Like, if you, it's purple. It's not like you're doing browns or taupes or whatever. When you choose a crazy non-natural, just go balls to the wall. Just go all in. You got nothing to lose. And maybe give us a better breadth of color theory and depth than giving us red. I kind of understand. Red and purple are very complementary. I would have preferred like a red shimmer, because that would have been all kinds of pretty. Do you a deep, dark, purple, smoky eye and pop that red all up on there. It is honestly, color story-wise, the most disappointing Jeffree Star palette I've ever seen. I'm less offended by the Thirsty palette, and that one I don't even own anymore. It was just not enough. It was too much focus on the packaging, too much focus on the theme. And when you put that much focus on a theme, the product that you're going to show us better be something amazing. It's like Nikita Dragon with that face palette. She's like, we used excavated space plastic NASA technology to make this packaging. And then she opened up the thing and it was like, oh, okay. All right, good for you. And so we had the mirror and the highlighters and everything. And then the inside of the palette was just like, ooh, I did not get any kinds of lust. It did nothing to light the fire within my loins. It was just a sad, depressing, pitiful, pathetic looking kind of all right formula. It just wasn't purple enough. It was like child's purple, but I'm an adult. I need an adult level amount of purple. Y'all, we're already at 20 minutes and like I've got all of this. 2020 was disappointing. All right, let's talk about Colourpop, because y'all know your girl loves to talk about Colourpop because I love Colourpop. I got a lot of shiz by them that leaves me all kinds of hot and bothered and happy. But with that being said, Colourpop is also a company that really, they get their rocks off by releasing everything. And I'm not going to talk about every single, as I was scrolling through, I went all the way back to 2019, looked at everything Trend Mood had posted. If I were to talk about every underwhelming, disappointing, pasty, rehashed eyeshadow palette that every company released, I would have enough content to get me through 2022. So I wanted to pick some standout, underwhelming, disappointing releases. And this one, we're kind of, I'll admit, it was the tail end of the year. I was like, I'm done. I've had it up to here with this company, with these people just doing all this stupid shit. It couldn't possibly get any worse. And Colourpop said,
Jesus, hold my beer.
And they came out with their wine and only collection, which, I don't drink anymore because I'm diabetic and because of other certain things. When I drank, wine. I could put away so much of that shiz. I am a wine mom. I don't drink wine anymore, but I'm still a wine mom. I am the aunt that will show up to your wedding. Dressed like this, half a bottle of wine just in. That is me. I love a sappy, tacky wine meme, anything. And so I was like, all right, Colourpop doing a wine thing. I'm down with this. And I would have been, maybe if it hadn't been, end of the year. Maybe if I hadn't been done. Maybe if I hadn't been just entirely fed up. This wouldn't have been as sad as it was. But you looked at it. And at this point, Colourpop was releasing something every other week. It didn't matter. It was a collaboration. It was a intellectual property. It was 2 eyeshadow palettes. It was 3 eyeshadow palettes. It was skincare for their soul, whatever. Anything and everything. Clear out the warehouses for 2021. Because they must be getting mad stock coming in for this new year because they're clearing everything out. And it was, again, just one of these. That's all it was. That's all it was. It was just a blip. It was another Colourpop release. It had no substance behind it. It was a wine and only, kind of rosy, kind of ready, probably, mostly, definitely already done. Because one thing, if you were to go back and you were to look at the majority of eyeshadow palettes Colourpop has released just in 2020, let alone the past 2 years before that, there is a certain level of sameness. They're just kind of going along, and you'd get a little blip. You'd get like the Raw Beauty Christie, the Child palette. You'd get those Baroque ones they did. The 2 matte ones look kind of interesting, but that's like 5 palettes amidst probably 30. And you go back and you can see just the sameness. And you're like, for half a second, you're like, oh, that's cute. It's wine themed. And then you're like, wait, this is just the same thing that they keep doing. Colourpop has become the absolute bane of my existence. I don't even check for Too Faced anymore. Too Faced releases something, and 99.9999999% of the time, I couldn't give 2 shizzes about. Just like, okay, it's another Too Faced product I'm not gonna buy. Colourpop is a brand that I have a lot of things I love. I got that monochromatic whatever. I got blushes. I got all kinds of whatever. But then I say so because they just release so much. And there's only so much you can do before it's all been done. Like, I mean, they're probably just going to keep doing the same thing they did this year because they're getting away with it, where they just take the same eyeshadows or similar eyeshadows. They've got like a lot of about, I'd say 50, you know? And they're like, all right, it's time to come up with a new release. And they kind of shuffle them around a bit, you know, a little and then they're just like, all right, we're doing a 9-pan palette, 9 shades, boom. And then they put that shiz in a different theme. They make it a wine theme. They make it an art theme. They make it a flower theme. You know, they just put the same stuff in different packaging. They're distracting you with the theme, with the aesthetic. It's wine! It's a wine collection! I mean, can you believe that shiz? How cool, cute, and quirky are we as a company to release a wine collection? I mean, it was to someone who liked wine, who still appreciates the aesthetic. I'm still very much vampire art, but you look at it and you're like, I mean, it was just so sad. And I feel like kind of what's sad, I feel like I keep repeating this kind of thing every single time. What's sad is how excited we get about the Colourpop wine collection. It's like the world has stopped turning. Shut everything down. Colourpop has come out with a wine collection. Let's all make funny jokes about wine and ha 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 and how funny and quirky and amazing this collection is because it relates to so many different people because everybody loves wine. I think a part of it is I'm getting old and I just don't care anymore. Like I don't have the time for this shit. I do not have the time for this absolute nonsense. Like even I would say if they had taken like the main Squeeze palette, which is their red palette already, they got a whole bunch of other red palettes, that would be more wine themed appropriate than this like mostly the same color. I mean, you could have had fun with it. You could have had a beautiful gradation from like the lightest champagne-y wine all the way down to let's get apothic red up in here. But no, we're not actually going to put any thought into anything. We're just going to take those shades, shuffle them up. It happened to be a rosy theme. Let's slap wine on the aesthetic packaging and keep it pushing. All right. Let's talk about one more. I think we have time for one more. We may need to do another one of this. I don't know if y'all want to see another one of this. If you've made it this far in the video, let me know if you would like to see me do at least one other part of this. I feel like this would just be a January, February thing because after that we're just beating a dead horse. Let's talk about one that on the surface doesn't seem that offensive. You know, you look at it and you're just like, okay, all right, it's just another release. But it's just sort of the thought behind it that makes it so underwhelming and disappointing. Anastasia Beverly Hills 2020 was actually a relatively slow year for them, Burp Squad, which is great because they got a lot of flack in 2019 for doing absolutely nothing but releasing new stuff. Eyeshadow palettes, highlighters, liners, the whole shebang bang. And they said, okay, all right, we're not going to have that many releases. We're going to have a little. We're going to have a few. And we were all very grateful. We're like, all right, they're finally, taking into consideration our thoughts, our whatevers, And then for holiday, we were going along. We had the Nirvana Pro Pigment Volume 4. I don't even know if we even had another eyeshadow palette, but holiday, a time of shilling, a time of releasing for every single company. They were like, all right, for holiday, we're going to keep it small. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep our promise to the people. And we're going to release the Soft Glam 2, which was just a teeny tiny mini version of the Soft Glam. If you look at that little baby palette compared to the original Soft Glam, it literally has absolutely nothing in it that you need. Now, I know we asked them for less, but when we asked for less, we kind of wanted more substance than what they were giving us. Less releases, but not less thought put into said releases. Like if they had actually thought, all right, we have the Nirvana Pro Pigment Palette Volume 4, which was supposedly supposed to be the Pro Pigment Extension palette of the Soft Glam. I was down. I bought it. I reviewed that shiz. And if they had taken that and been like, all right, 2020 is going to be the year of the Soft Glam palette. And they were like, we are going to give you a new Soft Glam 2. We're going to take this shiz and we're going to expound on it. We are going to jack it to Jesus. I would have been so down. I would have been like, yes, thank you. You guys took our words. You took everything. You took it to heart and you took the time to actually create and formulate and curate a beautifully thought out. No. It gave us this piddly little 8-shade thing. They're like, all right, Soft Glam 2. People are going to buy it because it says Soft Glam on it. You could have done so much more. Like I said, when we asked for less, we meant less makeup, not less thought. Maybe we didn't make ourselves clear enough. Maybe the guillotine in the makeup community waiting room wasn't a strong enough impression. It could have been so much better because 2020 has been one of the years for me where I've been like neutrals. All kinds of neutrals, all kinds of nice browns and dark and decadent and chocolate. I love the Soft Glam. They totally could have gone 2.0 with this shiz and made it its own standout palette while still being an ode to that sort of really beautiful, rich, and decadent color story that the original one was. But no, we're just going to cut it in half and call it the Soft Glam 2 and have in it absolutely nothing that you don't already have from 10,000 other companies. Not only that, you've already got this shiz from us. But we got to release something. It's holiday. Whether it's actually anything good, nobody really cares. And so this may have been a personal one, but I was like, really? Really? You went from releasing way too much to releasing less than the bare minimum. Can we not find a healthy middle ground with you people? I want a palette with some substance. I want a palette with some thought. I want a palette with a color story that you've actually put some time and consideration into. Tired of all these companies out here wilding and just being like, well, just stick it in a palette and sell it. We've got leftover shiz we got to get rid of. That's not good enough anymore. I don't want it. You could have had something. You could have had a contender. You could have had a nice round out the less released year with a nice standout palette that would sort of maybe put Anastasia back on that quality tier of when they used to release 1 or 2 palettes a year. But no, We're going to release another Norvina Pro Pigment palette, which admittedly, while it being really good, people were tired of that. And then we're going to release a totally half, you-know-whatted Soft Glam 2. I think at this point, the companies are just doing it to spite us. Or maybe just me. They watch my videos and they're like, all right, let's give this girl some massive agita. Palette gives me massive agita because it's just literally nothing. Y'all are gonna find it in Marshalls, in TJ Maxx for $12.99. So, wasn't the most happy about that. But that is seriously all the time I have for this. I was hoping to maybe do a little bit more. No, because I am disgustingly long-winded. Would love to hear what y'all have to say about what I talked about, especially if you like it, because makeup is subjective. And please do let me know if you'd like me to do another video of this. I know there's only so long I can talk and bash about 2020 until it becomes, very redundant, but let me know if you would like to see me do it again. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you, and as always, keep it real. Mwah!